You raise your arm to wave goodbye to a friend across the street. Your hand stops moving, but the flesh underneath your upper arm continues to swing like a pendulum. That loose, oscillating tissue hanging between your elbow and shoulder is not just a cruel joke of aging. It is a biological SOS. 9 times out of 10, the cosmetic industry lies to you about this. They blame it entirely on weight gain or inevitable aging, trying to sell you $700 radio frequency sessions and firming creams that cannot penetrate past the epidermis. But what is happening under that skin is a silent, systemic, structural collapse. In the next few minutes, we will conduct an autopsy of this failure. We will break down the exact mechanical breakdown of your connective tissue and show you a 5-minute clinical protocol to rebuild the foundation. Let us look at your arm not as a body part, but as an architectural structure. Think of it as a biological sandwich. On the surface, you have the dermal layer. Right beneath that lies the subcutaneous fat. This is the superficial adipose tissue, entirely different from the dangerous visceral fat wrapping around your liver. And beneath that fat, acting as the bedrock of the entire structure, is the triceps brachii. This muscle has 3 separate heads connecting to a single tendon at your elbow. It serves exactly one mechanical purpose: extension, straightening the elbow against resistance. Now audit your daily physical movements. When you lift a heavy grocery bag from the trunk of your car, your elbow bends. You are using the biceps. When you raise a ceramic coffee mug to your lips, you flex the elbow. Biceps again. When you carry a toddler, you pull them close to your chest. Flexion. Almost every single action you perform in a modern, automated life is a pulling motion. The triceps, residing quietly at the back of the arm, is practically unemployed. Human biology is ruthlessly efficient. When a muscle experiences zero mechanical load over decades, the nervous system triggers a specific command: disuse atrophy. The body refuses to spend caloric energy maintaining idle tissue. It dismantles the muscle fibers. This is the exact moment the cosmetic illusion breaks. That swinging skin you hate is not actually excess skin. It is the original envelope of skin covering a void. The muscular scaffolding underneath has retreated, shrinking in volume. The balloon has deflated, but the rubber exterior remains stretched over empty space. But the atrophy of the tricep is only the first fracture in the foundation. After the age of 50, a much more insidious thief enters the bloodstream: collagen, specifically the catastrophic drop in type 1 and type 3 collagen fibers. These are the rigid protein cables that anchor your skin to the underlying fascia. They give your tissue the snap-back elasticity you had at 20. Beginning in your mid-20s, your fibroblasts slow down, producing 1% less collagen every single year. Do the clinical math. By the time you hit 55, nearly 30% of your skin's structural integrity has vanished. The tensile strength is gone. This degradation accelerates violently after menopause in women, and alongside the natural testosterone decline in men over 55. But age is not the only variable destroying your collagen network. There is a silent chemical deficit hiding in your blood work right now. If you live in the Northern Hemisphere, or if you spend your days shielded behind glass windows and sunscreen, you are likely starving your bones and connective tissues. Anything below 20 nanograms per milliliter on a 25-hydroxy vitamin D blood test is a severe clinical deficiency. Vitamin D is not just a vitamin, it is a corticosteroid hormone. It regulates the expression of over 1,000 genes, including those responsible for tissue repair and muscle function. Without adequate vitamin D, the muscle receptors degrade, and your body cannot efficiently bind calcium or synthesize new protein structures. The collagen matrices fray. The muscle tissue wastes away. You apply expensive topical lotions to the epidermis while the dermis and the muscle below are literally starving to death in the dark. This is not an isolated cosmetic flaw. The sag at the back of your arm is merely the most visible symptom of a systemic connective tissue failure. If the fascia here is collapsing, look closer at the mirror. You will likely notice a softening of the jawline, a weakening of the abdominal wall. In women, this same systemic degradation often correlates with a weakened pelvic floor and stress incontinence. The exact same biological materials are failing simultaneously across different anatomical zones. Treating the arm with a localized cream is like mopping the floor while the roof is caving in. You must fix the structural deficit. If you want to understand why your connective tissue is failing, look at your kitchen table at 7 in the morning. The standard breakfast is a masterclass in biological sabotage. You consume a slice of toasted bread with jam and a cup of black coffee. Perhaps you add a splash of milk. You feel awake, but mechanically your body is starving. That meal contains roughly 4 grams of protein. To maintain muscle mass, let alone rebuild atrophied triceps, the human body requires a continuous supply of amino acids. These are the literal bricks used to repair the micro tears in your muscle fibers and synthesize new collagen strands. When you consume a carbohydrate-heavy breakfast with almost zero protein, your body remains in a catabolic state from the overnight fast. It begins cannibalizing its own muscle tissue to harvest the amino acids it needs for vital organ function. You are literally eating your own muscles to keep your heart beating and your liver filtering. The medical establishment often sets the recommended dietary allowance for protein at 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. That number is dangerously outdated. It is the absolute bare minimum required to prevent clinical malnutrition, not the optimal amount needed to maintain structural integrity as you age. After your 50th birthday, you develop a condition known as anabolic resistance. Your muscles become stubbornly deaf to the signals that trigger growth and repair. To force the muscle to synthesize new tissue, you must hit a specific threshold of an amino acid called leucine. You cannot hit that threshold with a bowl of oatmeal. You cannot hit it by eating a giant steak right before bed either. This is the second critical error. People believe they can make up for a protein-deficient day by eating a massive portion of meat at dinner. Human digestion does not work like a bank account. You cannot hoard protein. Your body can only utilize about 25 to 35 grams of protein in a single sitting for muscle protein synthesis. The rest is oxidized for energy or excreted by the kidneys. If you eat 60 grams of protein at 8 in the evening and 0 grams at 8 in the morning, you have wasted 12 hours of the day in a state of muscular breakdown. The clinical math is non-negotiable. If you are over 50, you require a minimum of 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, distributed evenly across 3 meals. If you weigh 70 kilograms, you need 84 grams of protein daily. That means 28 grams at breakfast, 28 at lunch, and 28 at dinner. What does 28 grams look like physically? It is 4 whole eggs. It is a thick cup of Greek yogurt mixed with a scoop of whey isolate. It is 150 grams of chicken breast or a generous fillet of wild-caught salmon. If you do not provide this raw material, no amount of physical exercise will tighten the skin under your arm. You are essentially ordering construction workers to build a house without giving them any bricks. The physical reconstruction begins now. You have the raw materials in your bloodstream. You have the hormonal catalyst from the vitamin D. Now you must provide the mechanical trigger. The triceps must be subjected to progressive overload. Do not attempt standard military push-ups on the floor if you have not trained in a decade. You will tear a rotator cuff, experience immense joint pain, and abandon the protocol within 48 hours. The goal is isolated, controlled tension, not exhaustion. We start vertically, against the wall. Stand an arm's length away from a solid wall. Place your palms flat against the plaster, positioned exactly at shoulder width. This narrow stance is crucial. If your hands are wide, you shift the mechanical load to the pectoral muscles of the chest. We want to target the triceps. Keep your elbows glued tightly to your ribs. Do not let them flare outward. Slowly bend your elbows, lowering your face toward the wall. Then press your palms hard into the surface and straighten your arms completely. Lock the elbows at the top to force a peak contraction. 10 repetitions, 2 sets. It feels embarrassingly simple on day 1. By day 14, you will feel a distinct density returning to the back of your arm. When the wall becomes effortless, you lower the angle. Move to the edge of a sturdy kitchen counter. The physics change. Gravity applies more resistance. You maintain the exact same form, elbows tucked in, hands narrow. Lower your chest to the granite edge. Press back up. When the counter is no longer a challenge, you drop to a low bench or the seat of a heavy dining chair. This is the definition of progressive overload. You are slowly demanding more force from the atrophied tissue, forcing it to adapt, expand, and fill the empty space beneath the skin. The second mechanical trigger is the chair dip. Position a heavy non-rolling chair against a wall so it cannot slide backward. Sit on the very edge. Grip the front corners of the seat with your hands, right next to your hips. Walk your feet forward and slide your pelvis off the chair, supporting your entire body weight with your arms. Your knees should be bent at a 90-degree angle, feet planted firmly on the floor. Initiate the descent. Bend your elbows, lowering your hips straight down toward the floor. Again, the rule of alignment dictates the result. Your elbows must point directly behind you. If they flare out to the sides, you destroy the isolation on the tricep and place a dangerous shearing force on the anterior shoulder capsule. Lower yourself until your upper arms are parallel to the floor, then drive your palms into the seat to push back up. 8 repetitions, 2 sets. This movement places a brutal, highly effective stretch on the long head of the tricep, stimulating hypertrophy, which is muscle growth, faster than almost any other bodyweight exercise. The third movement requires a single piece of equipment, a standard 1.5-liter bottle of water from your refrigerator. This is the overhead tricep extension. Hold the bottle with both hands, interlocking your fingers around the base. Press it straight up over your head until your arms are fully locked. Keep your biceps pressed against your ears. Your upper arms must remain entirely stationary. Slowly bend your elbows, allowing the heavy water bottle to lower behind your head, aiming for the base of your neck. You will feel a deep pulling sensation in the fascia at the back of your arm. Pause for 1 full second at the bottom of the movement, then forcefully contract the muscle to straighten your arms back to the ceiling. 12 repetitions, 2 sets. When 1.5 liters becomes too light, use a heavier jug. You are constantly chasing the point of mechanical failure. This 3-part protocol, the narrow wall press, the chair dip, and the overhead extension, requires exactly 6 minutes to complete. You perform it 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You never do it every day. Muscle tissue is not built during the workout. The workout simply creates the microtrauma. The muscle is built in the 48 hours of recovery afterward, provided you have eaten your protein and optimized your vitamin D. Training every day does not accelerate the process. It interrupts the healing cycle and guarantees chronic inflammation. Now, we arrive at the 5th and perhaps most critical diagnostic step. You cannot fix a chemical deficit with physical mechanics alone. You must demand a specific blood test from your primary care physician, the 25-hydroxy vitamin D test. Do not accept a general checkup panel. General panels often gloss over this specific marker. In standard laboratories, anything below 20 nanograms per milliliter is flagged as a clinical deficiency. Between 20 and 30 is deemed insufficient. For the optimal synthesis of muscle tissue and the aggressive regeneration of the collagen matrix, modern endocrinology targets a strictly monitored range between 40 and 60 nanograms per milliliter. Why is this exact number so critical to the skin hanging off your arm? Because vitamin D is not just a vitamin. It is a potent, fat-soluble corticosteroid hormone. It physically enters the nucleus of your cells and alters gene expression. When you are deficient, your body cannot efficiently absorb dietary calcium through the intestinal wall. Consequently, your parathyroid glands panic. They release a hormone that literally dissolves your own skeleton, leaching calcium from your bones into your bloodstream to keep your heart beating. While your skeleton is dissolving, your muscle fibers lose their contractile force. The receptors on the muscle cells degrade. You can lift weights until you are exhausted, but without adequate vitamin D circulating in your system, the physiological signal to grow denser tissue is completely muted. If your lab results come back at 18, you are operating a biological machine on an empty fuel tank. But do not attempt to self-medicate with massive random doses of supplements purchased online. Because vitamin D is fat-soluble, it accumulates in your adipose tissue and your liver. Chronic unmonitored overdosing can lead to hypercalcemia. This means excess calcium begins calcifying your blood vessels and kidney tissues instead of strengthening your bones. You require a medically prescribed, highly specific dosage based on your exact deficit. Furthermore, swallowing a dry capsule with a glass of tap water on an empty stomach is biologically useless. The lipid-soluble molecules will simply pass through your digestive tract unabsorbed. You must consume it alongside dietary fat, a heavy drizzle of extra virgin olive oil over a salad, a thick slice of avocado, or a handful of raw walnuts. The fat triggers your gallbladder to release bile acids, which are absolutely required to emulsify and absorb the corticosteroid into your bloodstream. Before you immediately drop to the floor to begin the mechanical loading protocol I described earlier, I must issue a strict clinical warning. We must respect the architecture of the human skeleton. If you have a historical injury to your shoulder capsule, perhaps a torn supraspinatus tendon from a fall years ago, severe osteoarthritis grinding the cartilage, or chronic impingement syndrome that causes a pinching sensation when you raise your arm, the rules change immediately. The shoulder is a shallow ball and socket joint. It is the most mobile, and consequently the most unstable joint in the human body. Do not force a damaged, inflamed joint through these resistance exercises. You are not treating healthy tissue. You are grinding compromised cartilage against bone. If you experience sharp, localized electric pain deep inside the joint capsule, not the dull, burning ache of muscle fatigue, but acute structural pain, you must stop the movement immediately. Consult a physiatrist or an orthopedic specialist. Obtain a diagnostic ultrasound or an MRI to visualize the soft tissue. Fix the mechanical integrity of the joint before you attempt to load the muscle belly. We must return to the overarching reality of human biology. The localized cosmetic flaw you observe when you wave your arm is a systemic alarm bell. I have spent over 15 years examining patients, reading blood panels, and observing physical decay. The clinical pattern is undeniable. The individual presenting with severe tricep atrophy and sagging skin almost universally exhibits other signs of connective tissue failure across their entire anatomy. Look closely in the mirror. The skin along the jawline begins to detach from the underlying bone structure, creating jowls. The abdominal wall loses its tension, feeling soft and yielding, occasionally allowing the protrusion of small umbilical hernias. In women, this same systemic degradation often correlates with a weakened pelvic floor, leading to stress incontinence when coughing or laughing. The exact same biological materials, type 1 collagen, elastin, and striated muscle tissue, are failing simultaneously across entirely different anatomical zones. Treating the arm with a localized topical collagen cream is a profound insult to your intelligence. The collagen molecule is physically too massive to penetrate the dermal barrier. You cannot rub a protein molecule onto the surface of the epidermis and expect it to magically rebuild a muscle belly deep below the fat layer. You are not merely experiencing an isolated issue with your arms. Your systemic protein synthesis is failing because your diet lacks the raw amino acids. Your bone and muscle metabolism is compromised by a severe lack of vitamin D. Your mechanical scaffolding is dismantling itself daily due to disuse atrophy. If you are in your 50s or 60s today, medical science suggests you have easily 20 good, highly functional years ahead of you. But that physical longevity is entirely conditional. The human body is a ruthless, unforgiving accountant. It only maintains the physical structures you force it to use against gravity, and it only builds with the raw materials you actually swallow and digest. Let us synthesize the clinical protocol into 5 non-negotiable steps to execute beginning this week. Step 1. The narrow grip wall press. Focus intensely on keeping the elbows glued to the ribs to isolate the tricep. 3 times a week. Step 2. The chair dip. Executed on the exact same days, utilizing a heavy immobile piece of furniture. Maintain a strict 90-degree angle at the bottom of the movement. Step 3. The overhead water bottle extension, reaching the point of mechanical fatigue. Again, the same days. Step 4. Recalibrate your nutritional intake. 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, divided ruthlessly and evenly across 3 meals. When you swallow a piece of chicken or a boiled egg, your stomach acid, hydrochloric acid, must physically denature the folded protein structures. Then digestive enzymes like pepsin cleave these structures into individual amino acids, which cross the intestinal lining into your portal vein. If you do not provide this complex digestive machinery with at least 25 grams of high-leucine protein at breakfast, the machinery sits idle. Breakfast is no longer a carbohydrate afterthought. Step 5. Book the 25-hydroxy vitamin D blood test. Write it in your physical calendar immediately before this video ends. Do not accept the commercial narrative that physical decay is an inevitable, unstoppable consequence of simply existing past the age of 50. The decay is largely a choice, driven by a lack of mechanical force and a starvation of vital structural nutrients. Rebuild the foundation from the inside out. If you found this clinical, objective breakdown valuable, subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment below with your exact age and the specific physical changes you are noticing in your own structural integrity. We are building a community grounded in harsh anatomical truth, not expensive cosmetic illusions. Take control of your structure today.